and gentlemen of the media. All things being equal, today should be the penultimate day of this process, tomorrow being the last day. Like I said, all things being equal. We counted 93 boxes today, and I believe that leaves 73 boxes to be counted tomorrow. That being said, there are a couple of issues that are in the public domain that are engaging the attention of the Commission. And the most prominent of those issues is this contention that some boxes were brought to the counting stations to be counted. And most importantly, they were counted, but those boxes did not have all of the envelopes as should have been in those boxes. Now let me make this very clear. There are a couple of those boxes that are being highlighted, or there are some boxes that are being highlighted as being recently discovered within the last 2 days. I'm not sure, I don't think any was discovered today. But that being said, we have discovered several of these boxes in other areas, in other districts throughout Guyana. And the way in which those boxes were treated is that whatever was found in the boxes what was found or was not found was recorded in the observation report. But most importantly, the ballots contained in those boxes were counted and recorded in the statement of recount and tabulated. Now, yesterday we had a meeting at which this issue arose, and it was decided that, and I believe that formed the basis of a press release today, which said the decision of the Commission was that the tabulation of those boxes will be put on hold for, pending the determination of a meeting of the Commission to discuss this issue. At that meeting as well, the CEO undertook to investigate the circumstances under which this, all of the documents were not sealed in that box, and to ascertain as well the location of those documents, and to speak with the deputy returning officers, the clerk to the returning officer, and more importantly, the presiding officers who were in charge of those stations, to ascertain what the position is in relation thereto. We have not had a meeting today as planned to discuss that issue, and we are invited to a meeting tomorrow to deal with that issue, hopefully, and to conclusion. Now, I say that we did not have a meeting for the specific purpose of highlighting that the issues contained in those press releases were not discussed at a Commission level. Now, I have already said a moment ago that the votes in the other boxes, wherever they were counted. They formed themselves into the statement of recount, and they were tabulated. And it is my considered view that no lesser treatment should be given to these boxes because they have already been counted, and they ought to be tabulated along with the rest of the district. But the emergence of this phenomenon begs the question, why is it that throughout the entire country, there is one particular area that presumably was under the control of one or two persons in terms of GCOM personnel, that this issue has arisen? And I would even go further to speak about the particular contesting party that on the face of it appears to be overly affected by this anomaly. And We've also seen today, and let me get back to this issue of the CEO speaking of contacting the DROs and the presiding officers, because I've seen that the press release say that those persons have failed to make contact with GCOM, or they have not showed up for the discussion. Now, I know for sure that some of the very persons who are involved in this very area are working as part of this recount process. In addition, I have seen reference in that very press release to statements made by one deputy returning officer who worked in that area, and there is some purported response by several other deputy returning officers. My colleague, Commissioner Robeson Ben, made a request to the chair for the names of those persons, the names of those deputy returning officers who have uttered statements or purportedly uttered statements to the contrary. But he was unable to secure that because he was directed to the chief election officer who had left for the day. Now, it is my considered opinion as well that the voters, the electors who presented themselves on elections day, marked the ballot, had their fingers inked, placed that ballot in a box. They did nothing wrong. It was through no fault of theirs that documents were not placed in a box, and they ought not to be disenfranchised by the acts or omissions of officials of GCOM who are charged with the responsibility of conducting this process. And it is against that backdrop that I hold firmly that those boxes that fall into this category ought to be tabulated, and that tabulation ought to form part of the result for District 4, which will eventually form part of the result for the entire country. Now, the last issue I want to touch on, which was dealt with in a separate press release today, is this issue of the release of results. Now, I don't believe that the release of results can be controlled by either GCOM or any other part or any other stakeholder in this process. Results are a public issue. It is very clear, and I don't believe anyone disputes the fact that GCOM is the sole agency which has the responsibility, legal and otherwise, of the declaration of official results of the country. But I don't believe any fetter ought to be placed on a news agency, a stakeholder, a private citizen, anyone who has the ability to summarize and to aggregate the statements of recount that are being generated in each polling station, each counting station, to project those results and say what they are at the material time. And I believe to do so would clearly present a fetter to those persons' right to disseminate information. As far as I have seen, and I don't believe there's any allegation of that, there is no allegation that those results are not reflective of what is transpiring in the counting stations as they were. So, those, ladies and gentlemen, I believe are my thoughts on these similar issues. To reiterate, I believe respectfully that the votes that are already counted and form themselves in a statement of recount for those stations ought to be tabulated and tabulated forthwith to have this process brought to a conclusion and move on to the other aspects of it. I thank you, and I look forward to tomorrow being the last day of at least this aspect of the exercise. Nothing to add? Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.